Okay, I'm making a couple quilts at the same time. This is the one that's mostly scrappy and pieced together. There's like 2 blocks in there that are not. One of them is just built wrong, so I threw it in there. And I like it. The next layout is going to be more like what you see down here, where they're just the way the pattern calls for them. I think these turned out really well, really cute. And a lot of this fabric is fabric from my own stash because I'm making so many. But I did find that with my kit, this fabric stretched into 2 quilts. I'm not sure what the top fabric did because I really mixed it up with my own stuff, or those fat 8s. But this fabric, I had enough to do 2 with a little bit left over if I don't do the borders the way the pattern calls. So my plan is to do some solid or just a print border instead of this woven. But that's what would take up the additional stuff if you were to put it all on one. This is the one that's built upside down. I didn't catch it until just now. The bigger block should be on the bottom. But who says he can't do that? So what started with these blocks being all scrappy like this, or the sweaters, is the fact that I didn't have pieces of my own scrap that were big enough to make into that space. And I thought, you know what? It's an ugly sweater. We can mix fabric. So like this one right here, it's the most interesting, had the most pieces to it. This one's really cute. So is that one. I think a lot of them are really cute. I start getting creative with, again, trying to make the fabric stretch. And we got Stewie right here. I like how that turned out better than I was originally going to do. And I think that's my only normal block in this quilt. And then the other quilt will have 13 blocks that are just like that one as far as their construction. I was going to try to mix it up and put a little bit of both in each quilt, but I liked this. Thought it was really kind of fun to stick all these in one place, except there's a lot of red blocks with the tree that came out of that scrappy fabric, but that's okay. I'm still trying to balance. It looks like I need to move Stewie to the middle. So I'm going to swap him. I'm going to swap these 2 out. I can see that that's just not going to be good to staying there. All right, and that's me switching those 2 blocks. There's better balance right there. So then I've gone through and it calls for these bigger pieces for the ends of the short row. And then there's a little piece between each of the blocks, except for between these 2. So it is ready after I swap those 2 blocks to be pieced. And you just do row by row. There is nothing that goes between these rows. The way it lines up is the background fabric is right up next to the bottom of that shirt. Kind of makes a row. It's not giving you the best example with just how they're thrown up here on the board. But this shouldn't take very long to piece, and then I'll be putting the borders together. So let's see what happens next. These are just my rows pieced and up on the board. The rows have not been attached to each other. It came together super fast. There's only 13 sweaters. There's 4 solid squares, which you'll see in rows 2 and 4 that fill that blank space on the edges of those. And then there's a little strip that gets put in between the sweaters when there's 2 that are next to each other. And there's 7 of those, 8 of those. And then the 13 sweaters. It's super easy. And then when I'm done with this, I'm going to start doing borders. But let's put this together. I grabbed my first 2 rows, and I actually started at the bottom and worked my way up. So right here we have rows 5 and rows 4. And what you want to do is, if you have to do any trimming to the block to make it square, do it along the bottom. There's such a small seam allowance or border up here that it would be really noticeable. So take it from the bottom. And I personally just barely squared these up just before I sewed my blocks together. Here's a trick. When you go to sew these together, you take one row that has the 2 sweaters, which means it has the centerpiece, and then the row that has the 3 sweaters, you're going to line this centerpiece up with the center sweater. Whatever order you're going to pick your rows up in, but it's going to be every other row. So this is going to come together and it's going to look like there's nothing touching because they're all floating sweaters. So the main thing is start in the middle and work your way out, and if for some reason you're just off a tiny bit, it will get absorbed. And don't forget your end blocks on those 2 rows. And let's keep sewing. All right, so I've made my squares, made my blocks, and just the nature of this fabric, and just with all the different seams and the possibility of slight inconsistencies, your blocks might wiggle around like mine did. So, but these pieces right here have not had anything done to them. That piece and this piece. So these are true widths of, or the height of your block. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking 2 rows at a time, and this worked for me before. I'm folding it in half. It doesn't matter which way you fold it, but you want to make sure that they are lined up. And I'm going to turn this around so you can see what's going on at the bottom. So this is where the difference is in my blocks, because the top is all lined up, and if you do any trimming, you want to take it from the bottom because you're not going to miss it. Where the top, you will notice it. So I'm going to line everything up. And the reason I'm doing 2 rows is because one of the rows does not have the big block. It just has the skinny strips, and I just want to make sure we're consistent. And there might be a little bit of trimming to do up here, not too much. Let's just see. You're gonna line it up on a line. Again, you want to make sure your 90-degree lines up with your mat, or you're going to have a funny angle somewhere. So the goal is you don't want to touch this block. You want everything to be this height. And you can see by these 2 blocks, I got off a little bit. So, okay, so these are right up here on this line. Yep, that's good. So it's roughly 11 inches tall. And you might have to trim it down a hair. So right here, this is the 11. Let's see how we're doing. Okay. Here is my center and the center. We're going to line them up and do the best I can. Make sure they're really centered. There we go. I'm going to combine this to my other 2 rows that have already been paired up and evened up. So it should be just a matter of laying it on top of this one, pinning. And 5. So that means this goes at the bottom of this row. And I want to sew it, I'll flip it this way. I want to sew on this side. So we can find the center. What is my center? Center is here. Now it's time to put that 5th row on, which in my case is top 1 or row 1. I guess I don't have to do 2 rows at a time to even it up. That's just how I started and it seemed to make sense to me. But I know that it needs to be 11 inches. So I'm pretty sure I can do this one at a time. This gets to go on top of this. And for me, this particular block has a line down the middle. It's like the only block I did that to, but it's worked out well that it's in the middle because that's going to be the most centered. But I want to make sure that this and this are centered together. Does that make sense? Because your eye will probably pick it up if it's slightly off like this or this. So in a way, this is very helpful for me to find the very center. But if you should play around with your blocks and do something like that, just be aware of what you're doing. Unless you intentionally make it off center, then make it a big enough difference that's obvious that's what you're doing. All right, it is done piecing. Now what's left is to do borders. And like I said, the pattern does give you instructions on how to cut borders out using the exact same backing fabric. I opted to not do that because I want to put some colored borders on, and by doing that I was able to get enough backing fabric to do 2 quilts, 2 quilt tops. And it's not a very big quilt, but I think it's more wall hanging, could be, you know, a little oversized throw, but it's definitely on the smaller size, which is good because that means it comes together pretty fast. Yeah, now I just have to decide what type of borders I want to put on it and how big I ultimately want it. And I'm thinking I'm going to make my borders scrappy, just like the shirts. So let's see what happens there. Okay, this is my stash of backing fabric that is Christmas related, with the exception of these things right here. But all of these are Christmas prints, and I don't know if you can identify this I have in the quilt, and this, here's another colorway of that one. Even, I mean, all of these really are Christmas prints. This one could be used, also could get used on something else. This actually goes to a Christmas line, but I think it could be used on non-Christmas. Same with this one. But these are all good pieces for backing. And so I might incorporate that into the front. We don't have too many scraps going on. However, this is my Christmas bucket or bin. And you can see I have yardage. Kind of wondering if that actually might be a good one to put on there because it's, I don't know, not as desirable. Could be wrong. But look at this. Okay, I just saw this. This might be perfect to make a skinny border and go around it. I could also go sideways, or you know what I mean. So it would be like one width of that, or I could do this again, like a certain size. This would be a good one too. So if I have enough to do a border and something, I'm really liking this one. Otherwise it's going to be, I think, choppy and scrappy to look like the quilt top itself. I'm really liking this one. I know that's kind of odd. I like this one. I like this one too. So here's some bigger pieces of that brown backing I was telling you about. Oh wow. These would be some good ones I could make into more. My goal is to make multiple quilts with this pattern. I have already made 88 blocks of the sweaters, and so I have several others that will be getting ready to go together soon. This is the first one that's finished, and I'm using the same backing that comes in the kit. So obviously I can only make one more with what came in the kit for that backing, so I will be using something else, probably solid or like a chalkboard looking or something. But anyway, if I need more blocks, I can do that. Now this also might work too, because this is in the shirt, and I'll just a little teeny candy stripe. Actually, this is not very wide. This actually is just skinny. That is definitely not going to make it around, but it would be good for more sweaters. So these are some big scraps. Now this one also might be a good one. For some reason, these are ones that draw my eye. That might be good for one of the borders. This one. And maybe this will be used on the other quilt. We'll see how far I can go with those two. And then the backs will be just whatever, when I'm all done, what I feel like and how it blends, because again, there's all my colors. I could make a border out of this too, but I'm just not wanting to. So this right here, that's pink, this is the same one. You can't see it, but in a different colorway. Then we have these two. And I really thought I had one or two of these in like a red or a pink with this funny stripe. This holly is actually used in the quilt. So really these fabrics right here are part of the fabrics that were in the kit. Now, not all kits are the same. So if you end up with a kit and your fabrics are different, it's the way it is. I gotta think about this. See, and I even have some 2.5-inch strips, and I have my 2.5-inch bucket for scraps, which honestly, here it is. I have more than I need, and that's misplaced, but I could easily scrap that binding up very easily. See, I can pull some red out, red and green. Well, there we go. That might be if nothing else, I've got those. There's not Christmas prints, maybe Christmas colors, but there we go. It'll be fine. I'm not even worried about that. That's partly why I have this bin. If I cut this up into 4-inch pieces, I can make it work. Okay, 4-inch pieces it is. This quilt is done. It has a 4-inch border and the cornerstones are different, partly because I didn't have enough fabric, but it kind of fits with the scrappy theme. And I'm just going to put binding on it onto the next one. Here's the second one. It's kind of hard to see the whole thing. For 65 by 63, it is a little bit wider than it is long, which is unusual. And the other one that I just finished is 62 by 60, same thing. So this one just has a bigger border. And the only thing too is I don't have any little sweaters that are kind of hodgepodgey. These are like, just like the pattern said. Although I have to say I like the other ones too. Alright, here's another one. You won't get to see the finished one of this one today, but I'll add it to the video. I'm using a little bit darker fabric. It's also kind of a woven fabric. And this has 21 little sweaters. So I made one extra to the side and 2 extra rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nope. Let me think about this. I only went down on one over, and now it's rectangle, but the wrong direction. Well, it might be okay. Now what to think about this. There's the next one I'm working on. It is 21 little sweaters. There's a row down there. Let's see, 7 rows, and each row has 3 sweaters. I just offset it. The pattern has you do 3, 2, 3, 2. So this is how this worked out for me. This is just it laid out. I'm not going to, at least I don't think, include it finished in the video that I'm doing, but I wanted to just throw this one in there so you can see of another one that I'm making and how I'm adjusting it to be bigger.